Welcome back to Behind the Scenes of the Waltons. Today, I'm going to be talking about the episode, The Nurse. If you're enjoying these, please do like and subscribe. So, being a nurse, I would not say it was a career choice I would have picked for myself. I'm not that great around blood and etc., etc. So I have tremendous admiration for the men and women who pursue careers in medicine, because heaven knows we need you. So hats off, particularly this year where the demands on the medical profession have been even more noticeable and advanced and extreme than in other years. So thank you so much for what you do. But playing one on TV is a whole other thing. I've played nurses, doctors, coroners, and the toughest thing about it is that there's a lot of technical language involved with it. So having to learn all of those medical terms and to be able to say them as if I use them all the time and I know exactly what they mean. So I would have to look them up, find out what they meant so I knew what the heck I was talking about and used them correctly with the right inflection or attitude about what I meant by what I was saying. So that was probably the toughest part. Learning lines can be challenging at times anyway. So to have a whole list of then medical jargon to learn, that made it extra challenging. But I'm glad that Mary Ellen pursued a strong career. I think it was right for her to want to do something that made a difference and for her to want to become a nurse, and then particularly to want to help care for people up in the woods that couldn't get down to town or wouldn't come down to town for medical attention. It showed her dedication and her care of people in need. And then that she went on to pursue becoming a doctor. Those were not things that came easily for women at that point in time, particularly in a rural setting like the Waltons, which then brought up the whole story point about her going to try and take her entrance exams and finding out that she doesn't know what she needs to know to even get in. So I wouldn't say math and chemistry. I never even took chemistry. And math I did pretty well with up to a certain point. So I could totally relate to the scenes where she is very frustrated over having to learn these subjects. And I thought it was adorable that John Boy was trying to help her and tutor her at first, and that didn't go well. It reminded me of trying to do homework with my son. But then she turned to Nurse Nora. Now, I think it was interesting because I believe that Nora, the nurse up in the backwoods who was caring for the Basham family in this episode, was meant to be the same Nurse Nora in the episode of the wedding where Kurt initially dates Nora. I don't know. I'm just guessing that because they had the same name, Nora, Nurse Nora, but played by two different actresses. I had totally forgotten that till I watched this episode again. Nurse Nora was very helpful in tutoring Mary Ellen, but in exchange, Mary Ellen had the opportunity to step into the Basham's life and understand not just the technical elements of having a nurse, but the human, compassionate aspect of nursing. And she loses a patient, not through anything that she does, but there's a moment there where that happens. There was a lot of growing up that went on for Mary Ellen in this episode. And for her having to really dig deep and determine just how badly she wanted this, not just because she had to study things that were hard for her, but going through that experience of caring for that family and caring for Mrs. Basham when she was in her last days. I really noticed that arc for the character when I watched the episode and was very moved by what the writers and with the guidance of the director, what was created there. Some enjoyable moments as I was looking at this. I love John Boy and Mary Ellen riding Blue bareback up to the mountain to go visit. I'd forgotten about that. Richard was always so great at just hopping on the mule bareback. As much riding as I've done, mounting bareback never one of my strong suits. And I just, love that Richard would just bound up there like no big deal. A moment of Ben milking Myrtle the goat. We all had to sort of learn certain skills like that. You didn't actually see him milking the goat. So whether he actually was drawing milk out of the goat or not, I don't know. But I thought it was a cute moment. I thought it was a very sweet moment when Mary Ellen has fun trying to bathe the children, the Basham children. And the kids would have really been laughing and having fun with the water. And scenes become very easy to shoot because you just play the scene. You don't worry about, I'm supposed to be having fun. Whenever you're not playing contrary to what it comes naturally, it's very easy. The Waltons want to help the Bashams, but they understand the pride.
Maybe I better get some supplies and run them up to the Basham place.
Old late Basham would rather starve to death than accept a handout.
I'll work on that when I get up there.
So John barters with him. He'll trade him food for a certain type of tree that he has on his property. And he says, I'm short on cash, so would you take food? And it's a way of helping a neighbor without compromising his pride. Sometimes I've talked about the movie magic. The building that was used for the nursing school was actually the same building that was used for Boatwright University when John Boy went to take his scholarship exam. And when he would be going to school, this was the same building. They would just change the signage on the building and we would repurpose it. So utilizing multiple sets. Another point in the episode, the segment where I talked about the house and I talked about there being two sort of mystery doors, one in the living room that probably went into the grandparents' room, and then this one in the kitchen that I said, I don't know what it's supposed to be. We never really used it. Well, here we are in this episode, and it is being used as a pantry because here comes John with a ham from that pantry. Mystery solved. On this porch scene, this scene would have been shot on the soundstage because you see here Michael comes out of the house. You're not far enough back to see much of the house. You're really just seeing the porch. And it's at night, so it was easier to light a night setting on the soundstage at any time of the day. Now, there's also something that I caught that as an actor, a tricky thing is that they put marks on the floor. They create like a T, and they put those where they need you to land for the camera, and that has to do with the focus of the camera, where the camera is, the lighting, all that kind of stuff. So you have to learn how to move into a scene, into a shot, and hit that mark without walking up and going. And there's a point right here where you see Michael kind of glance down. I'm like, oh, she was looking for her mark. You probably never noticed that before, but you'll start looking for that with actors, and you'll probably catch it here and there. One of the most significant moments in this episode is when Mary Ellen puts on that nursing cap for the first time. It's sort of trying on your future to see what you think of it. And then, of course, she has to go through all of those things to get to a point where she will actually have the opportunity to wear that cap for real. She's not there yet, but she's firmly on the path with a recognition that this is a journey she wants to take, and knowing that it's going to be difficult and there's going to be setbacks. But she now knows that this is a purpose for her. And it really does bring up that point about how important it is for us to have a purpose in our life and to follow that purpose and the obstacles that we will overcome because of that purpose. And I love how throughout the episode, John, my father, is very worried about me, being away and what's happening, and that I'm going to be going away to school and his first daughter that's leaving home. So I thought those scenes with Ralph were very sweet, and working with Ralph was always so easy because he brought so much to the scenes that you just had to show up and play the scenes with him, and they felt real and they played real. So Ralph was one of my favorite cast members to work with and to do scenes with for that reason. So those are my memories of the episode The Nurse and what it meant to my character and the future of where Mary Ellen went with her life. So it was fun for me to watch this episode again and look back at this turning point for her. I hope you've enjoyed this. I will be back with more behind the scenes of the Waltons. Thanks for watching.